How's everyone doing? It's Professional here. It's worth $8,000. Sell that. One. Hello, YouTube. How's it going? It's the Professional here. So I promised you guys that I would do an unboxing of the collection. Oh, and can I wanted to ask my chat about this something weird question to ask. But it's because I don't really know much about working out. I've been working out at the gym a lot, in the last half a year, and I have been working out in because I'm visiting my family right now, so I'm working out in my parents' basement. Because there's actual small little gym down there, but I do weights mostly, and I'm sure somebody in the chat knows a bit about exercise. But I was gonna ask, because I would always do leg exercises at my gym in the Midwest, but there's nothing to work on legs on here, because in my parents' basement there's no machines for legs. Squats, everyone's saying squats. Okay, I will try squats. Squats, okay. Okay, I would have to Google what a squat is again. I've heard it before. I think that's when you go up and down, right? But I gotta learn. I'll Google it. I watch a video on squats, so I'll Google it after the stream. So thank you everybody who told me about that, because I didn't know what leg exercise I should do if I don't have any equipment for legs. So that's just that. So today we will be unboxing the Destroy All Humans Crypto 137 Special Edition. A lot of you guys are probably looking at this and saying to yourselves, what the hell is this thing? This is the $400 Destroy All Humans Special Collector's Edition. This came out today.
Something's in my ass.
Cool set. I just don't think that it's worth $400. But thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like. And if you're new to my channel, enjoy my content, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. You never know. You guys better like this video, because if you don't, I might have to dox you. Myself from this. How do I stop this? Because it was going on for 2 hours and it was pissing me off, because it got annoying, because I was just trying to record a video and I really wanted to upload this guide for you guys tonight, but unfortunately I couldn't, because this piece of shit motherfucker. Hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone. Plant all of them, but if one heist, but still, but I'm assuming not everyone's using the same assault rifle or automatic shotgun. But okay. New and part of the criminal enterprises of that cell back in your CEO's this mission. Let's see. So player to the piece these, but you they would dismiss non, because if you the thing when I'm these on opponents in unique modes like sumo, remi, back to the is I don't know. We'll read all of these, but this sally's I know there's people defending this paragraph. Also, sorry, I was losing my voice here. I think the one question, but it's just it's a online here the IAA mission, the here they know this is just place they there's the reason enterprises Enterprises nightclub to help you know there's they are the same they bought the but there's this because I can with a stats bike room wall at the club with a night this might just I don't amber that you're room wall at the club. Well, what they mean of the and the and I think the but like in the TV show help and make it so that excuse me, I'm sorry. Ops, you can lock onto MCs. You can lock on the NPCs. I'm sorry. The lock on what the that's for in the MC members salaries and you know, don't get me to the Connie Island way there were I don't monthly and first feel like reading through the next post where these that's you know how came you know they read it online on who's had this year through this we I talked even watch play rather but which and I had a I think that the heist which you know I think you know look the I think be able to sell heist which you know look I think just I think that we don't know just with which but I'm still and I do not and I will be buying any of their update excuse me I think but what's I the real part of the test on the to P GTN I GT but on the gaming the well is previous this like you know hotel I think so why I first because I can the with a stats document forgery is worth selling now, guys. I know this is a strange question, but how much money have you spent on your cosplay outfits? Honestly, thousands of dollars over the years. I can confirm I do unironically love can you comment your some if you know every day, but I was very I really cannot like I'm not a fool I'm gonna think like shirt I just don't I don't know but you know he has my best it just into But thank you. Steel, thank you, super chat, maybe I'll do, okay. So yeah, Art, I'm like,